everybody. Welcome back to Bookish Daddy. I hope you've all had a great week. Today, I'm going to be doing spooky reads for the holiday season. So, Halloween's not too close, but it is getting close to fall. We're in the embers, finally about halfway through September. And I wanted to get into some thrillers, horrors, and I threw in a couple that are just dark. They're not necessarily horrors. I'll go ahead and warn y'all, I don't typically read thrillers and horrors, so there's only a couple I have read. I'm hoping to change that this year and read some. It's not usually my forte, but I know a lot of you do have reached out saying, where are the scary books and wanting some good thrillers and horrors. And for those of you wanting to cuddle up with your blankie and get scared at night, here's a few books. So the first one I'm going to go over is The Shining by Stephen King. I know, I should have read this by now, or at least seen the movie. I haven't even, nothing. I don't do horror typically. I've heard this is phenomenal, and the ratings on Goodreads are through the roof. This is supposed to be one of his best works. It is about a dad that gets a job in a hotel and his son starts seeing I don't know if they're poltergeists or demons or weird things or ghosts. I just know he's seeing things and they start trying to take advantage of the boy. That is all I know about this book. I've heard it's terrifying. I'm already terrified. I do not do scary. I'm gonna try to get that one and add it to my TBR. uh, but yeah, so if you're wanting just a good original horror, something that's going to spook you, I've heard The Shining is phenomenal. So the next book is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. And this is it. This is a thriller suspense book. I haven't read this one yet either, but I have heard great things. So this is a Shakespeare-esque book, not because it's those time or those characters, but there's a bunch of actors that do reenactments of Shakespeare, and one of them turns up dead, and they are all really good actors, and they're trying to find out who is lying. I have been told that there are a lot of Shakespeare quotes in this, and that it'll be even more enjoyable if you're a fan of Shakespeare, but it's not necessary to enjoy this book. And yeah, so that's the second book. The next book is Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. And this is that book. I love this cover, and it's even got the deviled edges. This book is freaking beautiful. So, this is about Dracula's first wife, or his first sire, or something along those lines. And she's excited at first about the possibilities of immortality and all the powers. And she slowly starts to see how evil Dracula truly is and what he's capable of. And this is kind of her story and how she survives Dracula. Dude, I would buy this just for the cover. That's the second book. The next book I don't own. It is Starling House, and it is by Alex Harrow. So this is a gothic fantasy. It's not so much a horror or a thriller, but I've been wanting this one just for the book cover. I'll throw it up so you can see it. This is about an old abandoned coal mining town, and a young lady moves in and buys or starts working in a home that has a bunch of strange things happening, and she looks for help and starts to realize that the whole town is kind of strange and off. uh I'm excited about that one, so I can do the dark fantasies. The next book is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Now, this one I added to the list. It says it's dark, gritty, and magic powers. A few people recommended this one, and I've seen a few videos where it's highly recommended as, this time of year reads. I know it's dark. I'm super curious about this one. So it says it's about a couple teenage buddies stumble into some superpowers. So they're adrenaline junkies, and they realize, like, the more they survive these stunts, the better their odds of getting powers are, or something along those lines. And they both become super powerful and then end up doing something that puts one of them in prison. And this kind of starts his villain arc where he not only wants to get out, but he wants to kill everyone with powers so that he's the only one most powerful person on the planet. I don't know. It doesn't sound super fallish, but it keeps popping up everywhere, and it's supposed to be really dark and gritty. So I added it to the list. The next book is What Moves the Dead by T. King Fisher. This one is a dark thriller, horror. So I didn't look too much into this one because I do want to read it. It sounds very interesting. It's about a veteran and a doctor get some cabins on a lake, and they start noticing that not only the lake is like weird and has weird stuff going on, but the wildlife starts acting strange and weird fungus starts growing on everything, and a bunch of like deadly things start happening in the area. And instead of tuck and tell and running, they decide to investigate, and it becomes like a horror thriller. And it sounded good. And I've heard Kingfisher is one of the best to write, so I'm excited about this one too. The next book is So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. This is a vampire horror book. I love vampire books, and so I probably will get this one and read it. This is about a lady who is married. Her husband's been, you know, doing infidelity. He's cheating on her. Uh, she's down in her luck. Her job, everything is just down. So her friend, who doesn't know everything, decides to take her out on a girls' night in a cabin. And from what I gather, she finds out what her husband has been doing and turns her into a vampire so that she can get revenge and go have her own fun and live wild and free. And they just go out and take on the town or take on the night together. Uh, I really want to read this one. I love vampire books. The next book is Lucy Undying by Kirsten White, and it's another vampire book. This cover is freaking beautiful too. You'll see it. I want this book bad. So this is Dracula's first thrall, or one of his first thralls, and she has put up with him for a long time and finally discovers how to break free and goes out, and she is trying to find true love or trying to discover herself, and he starts to hunt her, and it turns into a horror thriller, I'm assuming very quickly, with Dracula on her tail. And that's what this one is about. So this next book is freaking terrifying. I don't think I'm going to be able to read this one. So this is Incidents Around the House. It is by Josh Mallerman. I have seen everyone talking about this, videos about it, people telling me that it's like a horror to read if you want to be terrified, and I do not. So this is about a child who is haunted by an entity that she is calling Other Mommy, and weird things are happening around the house. She keeps like or the kid keeps depicting drawings, and things are happening with her toys. No thank you. So I am not the one to read this book, especially Halloween time. Y'all are going to have to do this one without me. So this sounds freaking terrifying. If you're looking for a straight up horror, everyone has been telling me that this is the one that'll like scare you. And I had to add it to the list because I know some of you love to be terrified. And I do not. I don't want to be waking up looking at my door wondering what's going to bust through it. This next one is a psychotic thriller and or psychopath thriller, psycho thriller, one of those. This one is called The Trap, and it is by Catherine Howard. This one I will read. So this is about a serial killer, and a detective has been on his case for quite some time, and she can't quite catch him. And at the same, so we're getting her perspective, like as she's like gaining on him, and then at the same time, he has a hostage in the back seat of his car, or the trunk of his car, that he's telling his life story to, and what all he's done, and the horrible things he's doing or going to do. And we're getting both points of view. We're getting the terrified person in the trunk of the car or backseat or trunk, and them listening to this serial killer and the detective's point of view trying to catch him before anything happens. That is right up my alley. a thriller with serial killer stuff like that, I would enjoy that. The next one is also a psycho thriller. So this is The Return of Ellie Black, and this is by Emiko Jean. So this is about a bunch of girls go missing, a bunch of teenage girls go missing in their town, and this detective has been trying to crack the case for, I think it's like 20 years, and can't make any leads. And then a young lady, one of the ones that went missing, shows back up, but more questions arise than answers. So they're questioning her. She won't say anything. She won't do anything. And this detective is frustrated because I believe one of the young girls was her sister, and she's just trying to get answers, and things just get even more strange as it goes on. So that's another one I would love to read. The next book is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I own this one. My wife has been begging me to read this for some time, so this fall is going to be the time. This is about a housemaid who is cleaning a home. She's noticing strange things, and then she notices that her door only locks from the outside, not the inside. And when she gets locked in there, on the back it says, that they don't know what she's capable of. So who's really locked in with who? This is a thriller, another psycho thriller, and this is at the top of so many lists. I've seen so many people bragging about this book. Like I said, my wife has been begging me to read it. So this will be the year I read The Housemaid, and it's supposed to be a phenomenal thriller about this family and this lady all locked in together, and who's the villain, who's trying to hurt who. This next book is another book that my wife has been trying to get me to read, The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This is another thriller. This book is about a city lady or a city girl that wants to go out on her own on a vacation in a cabin and get some fresh air. For some reason, this says she brings binoculars and booze and wants to just like people watch, I guess. That's not my thing, but apparently some people do it. And the house across the lake, she is watching through the binoculars, and she's getting to know this young couple and thinks that their life is really fascinating. And then one night something happens to the lady, and if that wasn't thrilling enough, I'm assuming she either gets like seen, caught, or things start happening strange around her place. And I freaking love the sound of this. So this actually sounds a lot like Disturbia, if you remember that old Shia LaBeouf movie. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting from it. I can't wait to read this one. This next book is a YA thriller, and it is The Woods Are Always Watching, and this is by Stephanie Perkins. This one, I would love to read this too. So this is about two teenage girls are about to graduate high school and go to college. So they do one last trip together. They go out to some cabin that one of them owns and go hiking through the woods. And it says they realize there's more than just animals lurking and following and watching them. That is right up my alley, so I can't wait to read this one either. A good YA thriller. That might be how I actually delve into these scary books and, get my toes wet. These last two are honorable mentions. So the first one, it's not a horror or a thriller. It's a dark fairy tale. It's One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Look, I had to talk about this. This freaking book, the whole duology, it was so good. I loved it. And I think that if you were wanting dark vibes, but you don't want the crap scared out of you, and you don't want to be on the edge of your seat, you just want a good dark setting, this would be perfect. So it's very dark fairy tale. There are creatures in it. Uh, Dude, this is so good. It's got a little bit of dark romance to it. It's a dark fantasy. So, like I said, it's not a horror or a thriller, but if you're just wanting good dark vibes, this one. The other book, if I'm going to talk vampires and I'm going to talk horror, Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. Y'all have heard me talk about this book so much. It's probably my favorite book ever right now, and it is just so freaking good. It is dark, morose. It's graphic. I wouldn't call it so much a thriller, but it definitely has horror vibes and gore. So if you're looking to not be scared, but if you just want something dark and gory and you love vampires and tons of fighting, uh, I've said before, this is Interview with a Vampire meets The Witcher, and I don't think there's a better description. That is this book, and it is so fun to read. The second book was just as good, and I'm dying for the third book to be released. It hasn't yet, so be warned, if you want to start the series, it's not finished. I don't think it will be until next year. uh Dude, I hope y'all enjoyed this. I really do. I am not a huge horror or thriller reader, but I am excited to get into them. I've asked y'all for some of your opinions. I've watched a lot of videos to see what everybody else is reading and recommending. Uh, so I'm sorry that I haven't read all of these, but I'm going to try to. And if I get scared, it is y'all's fault. That being said, if you enjoy this, make sure you like, subscribe, comment. You guys have been the best, guys and gals. Uh, this community is so amazing. I love all the comments and you sharing just sharing things and becoming friends. I'm getting to know a lot about y'all and I've been really enjoying it. That being said, if you want to leave a comment, I want you to leave your scariest book in the comments. If it's a thriller, a horror, and if you don't like to be scared, just drop something dark in the comments. Or I actually heard it's a thing for cozy horror books. I don't know all the details, but I'm gonna find out, and that is something I could read. I don't know how you can have a horror that is cozy, but I'm gonna try and find out. I hope you all have a great week.